Captain Dae-hyun stared at the warning lights flashing across his ship's control panel. Red alerts blinked everywhere, and the main engine made terrible grinding sounds. His crew rushed around the bridge, trying to fix what seemed impossible. To repair. "Captain, we have a big problem," said Hana, his chief engineer. She wiped sweat from her face as she looked up from her tools. "The main drive is completely broken. We cannot fix it with what we have here." Kyung-ho, the navigator, looked pale as he checked their position. "Sir, we are very close to human space. Maybe only 2 hours away from their border." The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew about human space. For 300 years, no alien ship had entered that area and returned to tell about it. The Galactic Council made it very clear. Humans were too dangerous to contact. They were violent, unpredictable, and had terrible weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Dae-hyun had heard all the stories since he was young. Humans were monsters who killed first and asked questions later. They had destroyed their own planet with wars before moving to the stars. The council said they were like wild animals, beautiful but deadly and best left alone. "How long do we have?" Dae-hyun asked quietly. "Maybe 6 hours of life support," Hana replied. "After that, we all die." The captain looked at his crew. They were good people, scientists and explorers, not soldiers. They had families waiting at home. Kyung-ho had just gotten married last month. Hana talked every day about her young daughter's first steps. "There is a choice," Kyung-ho said slowly. "We can drift into empty space and hope someone finds us, or we enter human space," Dae-hyun finished. The crew exchanged worried looks. They all knew the stories. Humans shot first and never bothered with questions. But dying slowly in cold space seemed worse than a quick death from human weapons. "What do we do, Captain?" asked Hana. Dae-hyun closed his eyes and thought about his crew. These people trusted him to keep them alive. He could not let them die because of old fears and stories. "Set course for human space," he said. "Maybe we can avoid their patrols long enough to fix the ship." Kyung-ho's hands shook as he changed their direction. The ship moved slowly toward the invisible line that marked human territory. Everyone watched the sensors, expecting to see human warships appear at any moment. They crossed the border 20 minutes later. Nothing happened. No alarms, no weapons, no human ships rushing to destroy them. Just silence. "This is strange," Kyung-ho whispered. "Where are their defense fleets?" The ship continued deeper into human space. Still nothing. The crew began to relax slightly, but they stayed ready to run if needed. Then the sensors picked up something. A single ship, much smaller than expected, moving toward them. It looked nothing like the terrible war machines from the stories. This ship seemed almost friendly, painted in soft blue and white colors. "Unknown vessel. This is Commander Ji-woo of the human patrol ship Morning Star," came a voice over the radio. The voice sounded calm and gentle, not angry or threatening. "We see you have engine problems. Do you need help?" The bridge went silent again. Help? From humans? This had to be some kind of trick. Dae-hyun picked up the radio carefully. "This is Captain Dae-hyun. Yes, we have engine failure, but we understand if you want us to leave your space." "Leave?" Ji-woo sounded confused. "Your ship is broken and you are in danger. We cannot let you drift alone. Please allow us to help you." The crew looked at each other with amazement. This was not what the stories said would happen. Humans were supposed to attack, not offer help. "Are you sure?" Dae-hyun asked. "We are aliens. We know humans prefer to be left alone." Ji-woo laughed, and it was a warm, kind sound. "Captain, no one deserves to die in space because of a broken engine. We have a repair station nearby. My ship can tow you there safely." Dae-hyun felt confused. Everything they had been taught about humans seemed wrong, but his crew needed help, and this human was offering it freely. "We accept your help," he said finally. "Good," Ji-woo replied. "I am sending over towing cables now. Do not worry. You are safe here." The human ship moved closer, and the crew could see it clearly through the windows. It was beautiful, with smooth lines and elegant design. Nothing like the brutal war machines they expected. As the towing cables connected, Hana shook her head in wonder. "Captain, this makes no sense. Why are they helping us? I do not know, Dae-hyun admitted, but they are saving our lives. The journey to the human station took 2 hours. Commander Ji-woo talked to them the whole time, asking about their ship, their mission, and their health. She seemed genuinely interested in making sure they were comfortable. The station has rooms for many different species, she explained. The air, gravity, and temperature can be changed for your needs. Our doctors can check if anyone is hurt. You have treated other aliens before? Kyung-ho asked with surprise. Sometimes ships have emergencies near our space, Ji-woo said. We always help when we can. It is the right thing to do. When they reached the station, the crew stared in amazement. It was huge and beautiful, with gardens visible through transparent walls. Ships of many different designs sat in the docking bays, and people moved around peacefully. Welcome to New Busan Station, Ji-woo said as their ship was pulled into a docking bay. Station Commander Young-sik is waiting to meet you. He will make sure you have everything you need. As they prepared to leave their ship, Dae-hyun felt more confused than ever. Nothing about this matched what they had been taught. Humans seemed kind, helpful, and peaceful. So why did the entire galaxy fear them? Captain, Hana said quietly, what if everything we learned about humans is wrong? Dae-hyun looked out at the beautiful station and the gentle people moving around it. Maybe it is, Hana. Maybe it is. The docking bay doors opened and several humans approached their ship. They moved slowly and kept their hands visible, clearly trying not to frighten their alien guests. A tall man with kind eyes stepped forward and bowed politely. Welcome, he said with a warm smile. I am Commander Young-sik. We are honored to have you here, and we will do everything possible to help you. As they stepped onto the station, Dae-hyun wondered what other secrets human space might hold. Nothing was as it seemed, and he had a feeling their simple repair stop was about to become much more interesting. The humans around them seemed so normal, so peaceful. Children played in the distance while adults worked quietly at various tasks. This was supposed to be the most dangerous place in the galaxy, but it felt more like the safest. Something was very wrong with what the galaxy believed about humans, and Dae-hyun was determined to find out what. Commander Young-sik led them through the station with gentle patience. He walked slowly, making sure they could keep up, and stopped often to explain things they saw. The corridor walls showed beautiful paintings and had windows looking out at space. This is the main living area, Young-sik said, pointing to a large open space filled with plants and small shops. People come here to relax after work. The gardens help clean the air and make everyone feel better. Dae-hyun watched human families walking together, children laughing as they played simple games. Old people sat on benches, talking quietly or reading books. Everything seemed so normal and peaceful. Commander Young-sik, Hana said carefully, we heard that humans are very dangerous, but everyone here seems so calm and kind. Young-sik looked confused for a moment. Dangerous? I suppose. Any species can be dangerous if threatened. But we prefer to solve problems with talking rather than fighting. Violence usually makes things worse. They reached the guest quarters, and Young-sik showed them rooms that had been quickly prepared for their visit. Each room could change its air, gravity, and temperature to match what different aliens needed. Dr. Yoon-ji will come soon to check if anyone needs medical care, Young-sik explained. Engineer Min-ho is already looking at your ship to see what parts we need. Do not worry about payment. Helping people in trouble is just what we do. After Young-sik left, the crew gathered in Dae-hyun's room to talk privately. This makes no sense, Kyung-ho whispered. They are treating us like honored guests, not dangerous enemies. And did you see their technology? Hana added. The way they can change room settings so quickly, those beautiful displays, the smooth way everything works. This is more advanced than most council worlds. Before anyone could answer, Dr. Yoon-ji arrived with a gentle knock on the door. She was a small woman with kind eyes and carried a medical bag that looked more like art than equipment. Hello, she said with a warm smile. I am Dr. Yoon-ji. Commander Young-sik asked me to make sure everyone is healthy after your difficult journey. She examined each crew member carefully, using tools that seemed to work like magic. When she checked Kyung-ho, her face became serious. You Have a condition in your nervous system, she said gently. It must cause you pain and make thinking difficult sometimes. Kyung-ho looked surprised. How did you know? I have hidden it for years. Council doctors said nothing could be done. We have treatments that might help, Yoonji replied. Would you like me to try? It will not cost anything, and if it does not work, there is no harm, Kyung-ho agreed, and Dr. Yoonji used a small device that glowed softly blue. Within minutes, Kyung-ho's face relaxed, and he stood straighter than he had in years. The pain is gone, he said with wonder. How is this possible? Sometimes old problems just need new solutions, Yoonji said simply. Medicine should help. People feel better. That is its only purpose. After the doctor left, the crew sat in amazed silence. They fixed a condition that council doctors said was impossible to treat, Kyung-ho said, touching his head in disbelief. And they asked for nothing in return. The next morning, Security Chief Tae-min came to show them around the station. He was a large man who could have looked scary, but his manner was gentle and his voice was soft. I heard you were curious about our defenses, he said to Hana, who had asked about human weapons the day before. Would you like to see our security center? The security center was nothing like what they expected. Instead of weapon controls and battle displays, they saw screens showing the station's health, air quality, and the happiness levels of residents. This is how we keep people safe, Tae-min explained. We watch for problems before they become dangerous. If someone is sick, sad, or angry, we try to help them feel better. Happy people do not usually cause trouble. But what about weapons? Hana asked. For protection against enemies? Tae-min looked puzzled. Enemies? We do not really have enemies. Sometimes there are disagreements, but we prefer to talk and find solutions that make everyone happy. Fighting usually just makes more problems. He showed them a few defensive systems, but they seemed simple and basic compared to what the galaxy said humans possessed. Everything was designed to disable rather than destroy, to protect rather than attack. That evening, Commander Young-sik invited them to dinner in the station's main dining area. The food was prepared specially for their dietary needs, and humans sat nearby talking quietly and enjoying their meals. Young-sik, Dae-hyun said carefully, can I ask you something that might sound strange? Of course, Young-sik replied, cutting his food with elegant movements. The galaxy believes that humans are the most dangerous species in known space. We were taught that you have terrible weapons and attack anyone who comes near. But everything we see here is peaceful and kind. Why do you think there is such a difference between the stories and reality? Young-sik was quiet for a long moment, and his expression became sad. Sometimes stories grow in the telling, he said finally. Perhaps what people fear and what is real are not the same thing. But surely you know what the galaxy thinks about humans, Hana pressed. Do you not want to correct these wrong ideas? Young-sik looked around at his peaceful station, then back at them. Some misunderstandings are complicated to fix. Sometimes it is better to let people believe what they need to believe. His answer was strange and made no real sense. Why would humans want the galaxy to fear them if they were actually peaceful? Later, as they walked back to their quarters, the crew noticed something else unusual. Every human they met seemed remarkably calm and patient. Even when problems arose, a spilled drink, a malfunctioning door, a crying child, the humans handled everything with quiet efficiency and gentle kindness. It is like they are all trained in some kind of peace philosophy, Kyung-ho observed. They never seem to get angry or upset. And did you notice how they change the subject whenever we ask about the galaxy's fear of humans? Hana added. They are definitely hiding something. In his room that night, Dae-hyun looked out at the stars and thought about everything they had experienced. The humans were clearly more advanced than they appeared, more peaceful than anyone believed, and more secretive than they first seemed. Something important was being hidden, and Dae-hyun was beginning to think that the secret was much bigger than just human technology or culture. The way Young-sik had spoken, the sadness in his eyes, the careful way all the humans avoided certain topics, it all suggested something profound and possibly troubling. Whatever the truth was, Dae-hyun was determined to discover it. His crew deserved to know why everything they had been taught about humans was wrong. And perhaps the galaxy deserved to know the truth as well. But first, They needed to understand what that truth actually was, and something told him that the answer would change everything they thought they knew about the universe. 3 days had passed since engineer Minho had said their ship was almost ready. But somehow, new problems kept appearing. A power coupling needed replacement. The navigation system required recalibration. Each delay seemed reasonable, but Da Hyun began to suspect his crew was not eager to leave this strange, peaceful place. "Captain," Hana said during breakfast, "Minho mentioned that one of our secondary systems needs a part they do not have here, but there is a civilian colony nearby that might have what we need." Dae-hyun looked at his engineer carefully. "And you think we should visit this colony?" "For the ship, yes," Hana replied, but her eyes said she was curious about more than just parts. So Young, a human historian who had become their unofficial guide, offered to escort them to the colony called New Jeju. She was a young woman with bright eyes who loved talking about human culture and seemed happy to have alien visitors, who asked so many questions. "New Jeju is one of our agricultural centers," So Young explained as their shuttle approached the colony. "Most of our food comes from places like this. The people there live simple lives and focus on growing things. From space, New Jeju looked like a green jewel floating among the stars. Vast farms covered the surface, and the cities were small and scattered, connected by gentle transportation systems that moved silently through the landscape." When they landed, Dae-hyun was amazed by what he saw. The farms were enormous, but they used growing methods he had never seen before. Plants grew in perfect rows without any visible machinery, and the air was cleaner than on most worlds. "How do you grow so much food with so few machines?" Kyung-ho asked. "We learned that working with nature is better than fighting against it," So Young replied. "Our ancestors tried to force the land to produce more, but that usually made things worse. Now we help the plants grow the way they want to grow." They visited a farming family who welcomed them with the same gentle kindness they had experienced on the station. The farmers, led by an elderly man named Jun-sik and his daughter Hye-jin, showed them around their land with obvious pride. "This farm has been in our family for 8 generations, Jun-sik explained. Each generation learned something new about helping plants grow better. Now we can feed thousands of people from just this small area." But as they walked through the fields, Kyung-ho noticed something strange. The irrigation systems were too advanced for simple farming equipment. The soil analysis tools were more sophisticated than what most planets used for scientific research. "That equipment looks very advanced," he commented carefully. Hye-jin glanced at her father before answering. "We try to use the best tools available. Good farming helps everyone." That evening, So Young took them to see what she called one of our cultural projects. It was a massive art installation floating in space near the colony, a sculpture made of light and energy that changed colors and patterns like a living thing. "It is beautiful," Dae-hyun said, watching the lights dance. "But how is it powered? Something that large would need enormous energy sources." "Artists find ways to make their dreams real," So Young replied, but she seemed uncomfortable with the question. During their visit, they noticed other things that did not match what humans claimed about their technology level. Transportation. Systems that moved without visible power sources. Communication devices that worked instantly across vast distances. Manufacturing facilities that seemed to create complex items from raw materials with impossible efficiency. "So Young," Hana said one evening as they sat watching the sunset. "Humans seem to have technology that is much more advanced than what you show to the galaxy. Why do you hide your real capabilities?" So Young was quiet for a long time. "What do you mean?" she asked finally. "The farming equipment, the energy sources, the manufacturing systems, they are all far beyond what most species can create, but you present yourselves as simple and peaceful. Why?" "Maybe we just prefer simple living," So Young said, but her voice was uncertain. The breakthrough came when So Young mentioned something she called the old days while showing them a museum in the colony's main city. "This section shows what life was like before the Great Realization," she said, pointing to displays of old human cities. "Back then, humans lived very differently. We were always fighting, always trying to take more than we needed, always unhappy despite having so much." "What was the Great Realization?" Dae-hyun asked. So Young's face became thoughtful and a little sad. It was when we learned the truth about ourselves and about the galaxy. Everything changed after that. We realized that some knowledge is too heavy to carry alone, and some truths are too dangerous to share. What kind of truth? Kyung-ho pressed. Before So Young could answer, a familiar voice interrupted them. So Young, I think our guests might be getting tired from all this touring. They turned to see Taemin, the security chief from the station. He had appeared so quietly that none of them had heard him approach. His smile was gentle, but his presence felt like a polite warning. "Oh, Taemin," So Young said, looking relieved and nervous at the same time. "I was just showing them our history displays." "History is important," Taemin agreed, "but some stories are better told at the right time and place. Perhaps we should return to the station. I believe Min-ho has found the parts needed for your ship." As they traveled back to the station, Dae-hyun thought about everything they had seen. The humans were clearly hiding their true technological capabilities. They lived in a way that seemed deliberately simple despite having access to advanced systems. And there was something called the Great Realization that had changed their entire civilization. Most importantly, there was some kind of truth that humans considered too dangerous to share with the galaxy. A truth so significant that they were willing to let everyone believe they were violent and dangerous, rather than reveal what they really knew. "Captain," Hana whispered as their shuttle docked at the station, "I do not think we are going to leave here until we understand what they are hiding." "I know," Dae-hyun replied quietly. "And I am beginning to think that whatever they are hiding might be something the galaxy needs to know about." But he was also beginning to suspect that the humans had very good reasons for keeping their secrets. The sadness he had seen in So Young's eyes, the careful way Taemin had redirected their conversation, the gentle but firm way they were all being managed, it suggested that the truth was not just dangerous, but possibly heartbreaking. Whatever humans had learned during their great realization, it had changed them from a species that fought and conquered into one that chose peace and isolation. And something told Dae-hyun that when he finally learned the truth, he might understand why the humans had chosen to bear this burden alone. The question was whether he and his crew were ready for whatever that truth might be. Dr. Yoonji found Dae-hyun in the station's observation deck, staring out at the stars. It was late in the station's night cycle, and most people were sleeping. She approached quietly and sat down beside him without saying anything for several minutes. "You are troubled," she said finally. "I can see it in the way you watch everything around you. You are looking for answers to questions that make you uncomfortable." Dae-hyun turned to look at the kind doctor who had helped his crew so much. "Dr. Yoonji, can I ask you something directly?" "You can ask," she replied. "But I may not be able to answer everything you want to know." "What do you see when you look at us?" Dae-hyun asked. "When you look at my crew, at other aliens, what do you see?" Yoonji was quiet for a long time, and when she spoke, her voice was sad. "I see people who are trying their best to live good lives. I see intelligence and kindness and the desire to understand the universe around them. I see individuals who care about their families and their future." "That sounds positive," Dae-hyun said. "Why do you seem sad when you say it?" "Because when you look at us, what do you see?" Yoonji asked in return. Dae-hyun thought carefully. "I see people who are remarkably peaceful and wise. I see a species that has learned to live without violence or greed. I see humans who are more advanced than you pretend to be, but who choose to live simply and help others. I see something that the rest of the galaxy fears, but should not." Yoonji's expression became even sadder. "Yes," she whispered. "That is exactly what you see. And that is exactly the problem. I do not understand. Dae-hyun, what if I told you that what you see when you look at us, this peace, this wisdom, this contentment, what if I told you that this was not always the case?" So Young mentioned something called the Great Realization. She said humans were different before that. Yoonji nodded slowly. "We were very different. We were exactly what the galaxy now says we are. Violent, aggressive, always fighting, never satisfied. We destroyed our own planet with wars and pollution. We took everything we could from nature and from each other. But you changed," Dae-hyun said. People can change. That is something to be proud of, not sad about. We changed because we learned something that broke our hearts, Yunji replied. We learned something that explained everything about ourselves and about the galaxy. And once we knew this truth, we could never unknow it. Before Dae-hyun could ask more questions, Yunji stood up. I have said too much already. But Dae-hyun, I want you to understand something important. What you see in us now, this peace, this contentment, it came at a terrible cost. We paid for our wisdom with our innocence. She started to leave, then turned back. Tomorrow, you should talk to Minho about your ship repairs. Ask him about our energy systems. Ask him how we power our cities and our ships. But be prepared for answers that will only make you more confused. The next morning, Dae-hyun found Minho working on their ship in the station's repair bay. The engineer was a cheerful man who loved to talk about technology, but Dae-hyun noticed that he always became vague when asked about the more advanced systems. Minho, Dae-hyun said, Dr. Yoon-ji suggested I ask you about your energy systems. How do you power something as large as this station? Minho looked up from his work, and for a moment his expression was unguarded. Oh, that is easy. We use quantum vacuum fluctuation taps connected to dimensional fold generators. Each station can produce enough energy to power a small star system. Dae-hyun stared at him. That technology should be impossible. The energy, calculations alone would require computational power beyond anything the galaxy has ever seen. Well, when you understand the fundamental structure of reality, the math becomes much simpler, Minho said casually. Then he seemed to realize what he had said, and his face went pale. I mean, we just use very efficient fusion reactors, nothing special. Minho, what you just described is technology that is centuries ahead of anything the Galactic Council has. How do humans have access to such advanced science? The engineer sat down heavily on a tool crate. I should not have said that. Taemin is going to be very unhappy with me. Why are you hiding your real technology? Dae-hyun pressed. Why do you pretend to be less advanced than you actually are? Minho looked around to make sure no one else was listening, then spoke very quietly. Because if the galaxy knew what we could really do, everything would change. And not in a good way. What do you mean? Captain, what if I told you that humans can manipulate matter at the quantum level, that we can create or destroy planets, if we wanted to? That we have technology that could remake the galaxy in any way we chose? Dae-hyun felt cold. That would make you the most powerful species in known space. Exactly, Minho said sadly. And power like that would either make everyone else afraid of us, or it would make them dependent on us. Neither option leads to a happy galaxy. But surely other species could learn to use such technology themselves. Minho's expression became even sadder. That is the problem, Captain. They cannot. And we learned this truth during our great realization. That is why everything changed for us. Before Dae-hyun could ask what he meant, Taemin appeared in the repair bay. The security chief looked tired and worried. Minho, he said gently, I think you have been working too hard. Perhaps you should take a break. I was just explaining. Our fusion reactors to Captain Dae-hyun, Minho said weakly. Yes, our simple fusion reactors, Taemin agreed, but his eyes told a different story. Captain, I hope you understand that sometimes people say things they do not mean when they are tired. Of course, Dae-hyun replied, but he knew that Minho had been telling the truth. That afternoon, Dae-hyun gathered his crew in his quarters to share what he had learned. They have technology that is far beyond anything we imagined, he told them. They can manipulate matter and energy in ways that should be impossible. They have power that could reshape the galaxy. But they choose to live simply and help others. Instead, Hana said thoughtfully, why would they make such a choice? Because they learned something during their great realization, Kyung-ho added. Something that changed everything about how they see themselves and the galaxy. And whatever they learned, it made them sad, Dae-hyun concluded. Dr. Yoon-ji said they paid for their wisdom with their innocence. Minho said other species cannot learn to use their technology. The crew sat in silence, trying to understand what these clues might mean. Captain, Hana said slowly, what if the problem is not about technology at all? What if the humans learned something about us, about other species, that changed how they see the galaxy, something that made them choose isolation rather than reveal the truth, Kyung-ho added. Dae-hyun felt a chill run down his spine. Whatever secret the humans were keeping, it was something that they believed would hurt the galaxy to know. They had chosen to be feared and misunderstood rather than share knowledge that might cause some kind of damage. But what kind of truth could be so dangerous that an entire species would choose centuries of isolation to protect others from it? He was beginning to suspect that finding out might be the most important and most terrifying discovery of his life. Commander Ji-woo found Dae-hyun and his crew in the station's garden area the next morning. She looked tired, as if she had not slept well, and her usual gentle smile was replaced by a serious expression. "Captain Dae-hyun," she said quietly, "I need to speak with you and your crew. There are things you deserve to know, even if those things are difficult to hear." She led them through parts of the station they had never seen before, down corridors that seemed older and less used. Finally, they arrived at a door marked with symbols that were clearly restricted access. "This is our archive," Ji-woo explained. "We keep our real history here along with the records of our great realization. Most humans never need to see these things, but you have been asking the right questions, and you deserve honest answers." Inside the archive, they were greeted by So Young and an elderly man with silver hair and wise, sad eyes. "This is Admiral Dong-wook," Ji-woo said. He was one of the humans present during first contact with the Galactic Council. He witnessed the events that led to our great realization. The archive room was filled with displays, documents, and recordings that seemed to glow with their own light. But what caught Dae-hyun's attention was a large holographic display in the center of the room showing what appeared to be a timeline of galactic history. "Please sit down," Admiral Dong-wook said in a voice that carried the weight of many years. "What I'm going to tell you will change how you see everything. Your species, my species, and the galaxy itself." The elderly admiral activated the holographic display, and it showed images of the first meeting between humans and the Galactic Council 300 years ago. "When we first encountered your people," Dong-wook began, "we were exactly what the galaxy now says we are. We were violent, greedy, always fighting among ourselves. We had nearly destroyed our own planet with wars and pollution." The display showed images of early human cities, scarred by conflict and environmental damage. "We were excited to meet other intelligent species. We thought we would learn from you, maybe become part of something greater than ourselves. But what we discovered changed everything." The display shifted to show genetic and biological data that meant nothing to Dae-hyun, but So Young began to explain. "Captain, when our scientists studied the various species in the Galactic Council, they made a discovery that horrified them. Every known intelligent species in the galaxy, your people, the Altarians, the Vexians, the Crystalline Collective, all of them, had evolved from the same basic template. That is not unusual," Kyung-ho said. "Many species share common evolutionary patterns." "No," Admiral Dong-wook said sadly. "You do not understand. You did not just share patterns. You shared limitations." The display changed to show brain scans and neural activity patterns from dozens of different species. Every species we studied had reached what we can only call evolutionary stagnation, So Young continued. Your brains, your thought patterns, your capacity for growth and change, they had all stopped developing millions of years ago. Dae-hyun felt confused. "What does that mean?" "It means," Ji-woo said gently, "that while other species could maintain their civilizations and even advance technologically, they had lost something fundamental. They had lost the ability to truly change, to grow beyond what they already were, to create genuinely new ideas." The display showed artistic works, scientific discoveries, and philosophical developments from various galactic species over thousands of years. The pattern was clear. Everything was variations on existing themes, refinements of old ideas, but nothing truly new or revolutionary. "Your people can learn," Admiral Dong-wook explained. "You can solve problems and build wonderful things, but you cannot fundamentally change who you are. You cannot break free from the patterns that were set in your evolution millions of years ago." "But humans can," Dae-hyun said, beginning to understand. "Yes," So Young replied. "Earth's isolation meant that humans evolved differently. We retained something that other species had lost: the capacity for genuine creativity, for fundamental change, for breaking free from old patterns of thought and behavior. The display showed human art, music, literature, and scientific breakthroughs from both before and after their great realization. Even Dae-hyun could see the difference. Human creativity was wild, unpredictable, and constantly evolving in ways that galactic art never did. When we realized this, Admiral Dong-wook continued, we faced a terrible choice. We could share this knowledge with the galaxy, or we could keep it secret. Why was that a difficult choice? Hana asked. Ji-woo answered, with deep sadness in her voice. Because if we told the galaxy that they were limited in ways we were not, it would either destroy their sense of self-worth or make them completely dependent on us for any real progress. We ran simulations, So Young added. If we revealed the truth, one of two things would happen. Either other species would become so jealous and resentful that they would unite to destroy us, leading to a galaxy-wide war, or they would give up trying to solve their own problems and expect humans to do everything for them. The display showed these simulations, wars that consumed star systems, or civilizations that simply stopped trying to advance because they believed only humans could create real solutions. Both outcomes would have been disasters, Admiral Dong-wook said. So we made a different choice. We decided to protect the galaxy from this knowledge by making them afraid of us instead. You chose to be hated rather than reveal the truth, Dae-hyun said with amazement. We chose to let other species maintain their dignity, Ji-woo corrected. Better for them to think we are dangerous than for them to know they are limited in ways we are not. The room was quiet as the aliens absorbed this information. Finally, Kyung-ho spoke. But this means that everything in the galaxy, all our art, our science, our philosophy, it is just repetitions of old patterns? Not repetitions, So Young said kindly. Variations. Beautiful, meaningful variations. Your species create wonderful things within the patterns that guide you, but you cannot break free from those patterns to create something completely new. And humans can, Hana said. Yes, Admiral Dong-wook replied. But we chose not to. We realized that our creativity was not a gift to be used for our own benefit. It was a responsibility to protect and guide other species without them knowing it. The display showed human technology that was centuries ahead of anything the galaxy possessed, but also showed how humans chose to live simply and help others rather than dominate them. So you developed incredible technology, but chose not to. Use it, Dae-hyun said. We use it, Ji-woo replied. But carefully and hidden. We use our abilities to solve problems quietly, to help when disasters occur, to guide scientific discoveries in ways that appear natural. We are the galaxy's invisible guardians. But the cost, Yoon-ji, who had joined them quietly, said from the doorway. The cost is that we can never be truly known or understood by anyone else. We must always pretend to be less than we are, and we must carry the burden of this knowledge alone. Dae-hyun looked around at the humans in the room, their faces showing the weight of centuries of isolation and secrecy. This is why you seemed so sad when we described you as peaceful and wise, he said to Yoon-ji, because our admiration reminds you of what separates us. Yes, she replied. We are peaceful because we learned that our creative potential could be terrifying if used wrongly. We are wise because we understand truths that we can never share. And we are lonely because we can never be fully honest with anyone outside our own species. The weight of this revelation settled over Dae-hyun and his crew like a heavy blanket. They understood now why humans had chosen isolation, why they hid their technology, why they seemed so strangely calm and patient. But they also understood that they now carried this knowledge themselves, and they would have to decide what to do with it. The archive room felt heavy with silence after Admiral Dong-wook finished explaining the truth about human capabilities and galactic limitations. Dae-hyun stared at the holographic displays, showing the vast difference between human creativity and the pattern-bound thinking of other species. There is more you need to understand, So Young said quietly, activating another section of the display. What we have told you about evolutionary stagnation and creative limitations, that is only part of the story. The new images showed human, society as it existed now, with detailed analyses of their culture, education, and way of life. After we learned the truth about ourselves and the galaxy, Admiral Dong-wook continued, we faced a choice about how to live with this knowledge. We could have used our abilities to become the rulers of the galaxy, or we could find another way. Commander Ji-woo stepped forward. We chose what we call the path of chosen limitation. Every human child learns about our true capabilities, but we also learn to find fulfillment without using those capabilities for personal gain. What does that mean? Hana asked. Dr. Eun-ji answered. It means we teach ourselves to be content with less rather than always wanting more. We learn to find happiness in simple things, to solve problems with wisdom rather than force, to create beauty without showing off our power. The display showed human schools where children learned advanced science and art, but also learned meditation, philosophy, and what they called contentment practices. Every human goes through realization training when they become adults, Young-sik, who had joined them, explained. We learn the full truth about our abilities and about the galaxy. But we also learn why we choose not to use those abilities for dominance or personal advancement. You teach your children to limit themselves, Kyung-ho said with amazement. We teach them to find strength in restraint, Admiral Dong-wook corrected. We show them that true power lies in choosing not to use power. We help them understand that protecting others' dignity is more important than proving our own superiority. So Young activated another display showing human technology that was indeed centuries beyond anything the galaxy possessed. Ships that could travel faster than light without traditional drives. Weapons that could destroy stars. Manufacturing systems that could rebuild entire planets. We have all of this, she said sadly, but we chose to live simply instead. We use our advanced technology only when necessary, and always in ways that appear normal to outside observers. But how do you help the galaxy without revealing yourselves? Dae-hyun asked. Ji-woo smiled for the first time since entering the archive. We have become very good at subtle assistance. When a plague threatens a planet, we develop a cure and make sure local scientists discover it. When a species faces environmental collapse, we guide them toward solutions that appear to be their own discoveries. Sometimes we even stage small emergencies, Tae-min added, so that we can appear to be simply helpful neighbors rather than advanced guardians. Like engine failures near your space? Dae-hyun asked with sudden understanding. Sometimes, Young-sik admitted. When we detect ships in distress, we occasionally encourage them to drift toward our territory so we can help them without seeming too advanced or too convenient. The crew looked at each other with amazement. Their entire encounter with humans had been carefully managed from the beginning. But why show us all this now? Hana asked. Why reveal your secrets to us? Admiral Dong-wook's expression became serious. Because you asked the right questions and showed the right character. Because you saw through our deception but did not become hostile or demanding. And because sometimes we hope that we might not have to carry this burden alone forever. What do you mean? Dae-hyun asked. So Young answered. We believe that someday, other species might be ready to learn the truth about themselves and about us. Not today, probably not for many generations, but someday. When that time comes, it would help to have allies who understand both the truth and why we kept it secret for so long. You want us to keep your secret? Kyung-ho said. We want you to understand why the secret exists, Dr. Yoon-ji replied. And then we want you to make your own choice about what to do with that understanding. The room fell silent again as the aliens considered the enormous weight of what they had learned. Finally, Dae-hyun spoke. If we tell the galaxy the truth, what would happen? Honestly, Admiral Dong-wook said, probably disaster. Some species would demand that we solve all their problems for them. Others would become so angry and jealous that they would try to destroy us. Most would lose confidence in their own abilities and stop trying to grow and learn. But if we keep the secret, we become part of your isolation, Hana said. Yes, Ji-woo admitted. That is the burden we are asking you to consider sharing. Dae-hyun thought about his crew, his people, and the galaxy he had always known. Everything was different now that he understood the truth. The art galleries on his home world, the scientific achievements he had admired, the philosophical discussions he had enjoyed, all of it was beautiful, but all of it was limited in ways he had never imagined, but he also thought about the humans around him, their quiet strength, their gentle wisdom, their choice to protect rather than dominate. They had given up the chance to be truly known and appreciated in order to preserve the dignity of every other species in the galaxy. There is something else, Minho said quietly from the corner where he had been standing. If you choose to keep our secret, we would like to offer you something. He pulled out a small device that glowed with soft, beautiful light. This contains examples of human art, music, poetry, and scientific theories. Things that we created but could never share. Not instructions or technology that would seem too advanced, but inspiration. Seeds, So Young added. Ideas that might help your own people remember how to be more creative within the patterns that guide them. Not breaking free from those patterns, but finding new ways to work within them. Dae-hyun looked at the device, then at his crew. Hana and Kyung-ho both nodded slightly. They understood what this choice meant. If we take this back to our people, he said slowly, and if we never tell them where it came from, it might help them become more than they have been without making them feel inadequate. That is our hope, Admiral Dong-wook said. Not revolution, but gentle inspiration. Not dependence, but renewed confidence in their own abilities. Dae-hyun accepted the device and felt its warmth in his hands. We will keep your secret, he said finally. We will tell our people that we had a routine engine failure and received standard assistance from human patrol ships. Nothing more. But we will carry this knowledge with us, Hana added. And if the time ever comes when the galaxy is ready for the truth, we will be prepared to help them understand it. That is all we can ask, Jiwoo said with relief and gratitude. As they prepared to leave the archive, Dae-hyun turned back to the humans who had trusted them with the greatest secret in the galaxy. Thank you, he said simply, for the help, for the truth, and for the choice to protect everyone's dignity rather than your own glory. Thank you, Dr. Yoon-ji replied, for understanding why we made the choices we did. 2 hours later, the alien ship departed from New Busan Station with fully repaired engines and a crew that appeared unchanged to outside observers. But they carried with them a small device containing seeds of inspiration and the weight of the most important secret in galactic history. As they watched the human station shrink behind them, Kyung-ho asked, "Do you think we made the right choice?" Dae-hyun looked at the device in his hands, thinking about the lonely guardians they were leaving behind, and the galaxy full of people who would never know how much they were loved and protected. I think, he said finally, that we learned what true strength really means. And maybe someday that understanding will help make the galaxy ready for the truth. In the distance, human space remained quiet and peaceful, its people continuing their chosen isolation while they watched over a galaxy that feared them, never knowing that they were the most protected and cherished species in the universe.